We've all heard the saying, the customer's always right, but sometimes that idea just doesn't play out like that. In fact, it can look a little something like this.
Oh. Yeah, well, I'll see you tomorrow then. Gobble, gobble. Oh, bye-bye.
So if you're a business owner or the employee interacting with customers, Susan Steinbrecher, author and leadership consultant, has tips that will help turn this challenge into a win-win for all. Good to have you.
Thank you. I'm excited to be with you ladies today.
You've got a new book, and you've got some great tips on how we can get more information on making the customer happy, at the same time satisfying our employer, in the case if we were actually the employee.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the first tips is what I call they need what you need.
That's
I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? We want to be cared for and valued and appreciated. Customers want that, employees want that, right? So if the employee puts themselves in the shoes of the customer and says, what would I expect and want from this customer service experience? And they deliver on that, they're going to hit the mark.
And a lot of it stems from, which is what your book is about, is leadership. And you're kind of saying, which you've kind of coined, is like lead well, live well.
Yes.
How does that leadership play into a great customer service experience?
Well, what I found from experience is those associates that feel really well taken care of. Right? If the leader takes good care of that associate employee takes really good care of the customer, typically because they're being modeled, right? It's been modeling the way, the leader's modeling the way of how to treat a customer. And so they ultimately then deliver on the end result, right? The business result.
Empathy is important too.
Really, really important. In fact, you know, to me, we've all had the experience, haven't we, of the apology that we knew was completely insincere, right? And we're like, you don't really mean that when you say you're sorry. So empathy really helps because it sort of sets the stage for the apology. So, you know, Mr. Smith, I would be completely upset as well. If I went through what you went through today, I would be upset. So I just really, apologize for the situation. So that really lends some credence to the apology when you empathize first.
Is there a way to get more out of a customer service representative as a customer? Is there a way for me to get more out of them?
That's a great question. I'd say yes, because, you know, at the end of the day, we're all human, right? And they, you know, this is, again, it's that connection. We don't know what that employee's gone through that day. We don't know what that customer's gone through that day. So I know it's difficult and we know it's their job, but if you can kind of look at them as this human being that's probably had a rough day, or maybe the customer right before you screamed at them and they're rattled a bit, or they're becoming defensive because of it, you know, give them a little bit of slack around that.
That's a great point, because, you know, my husband travels a lot, so he's on the phone a lot, especially with canceled flights and such, and Lisa made a really good point that several times I've seen him at his max frustration, but like something comes over him and he becomes this nice guy, and then he ends up getting what he wants. And I just watch this thing play out, and I'm like, well, he's got this thing down to an art.
You're like, I wish he'd do that at home.
No, it really works because the person immediately feels that, okay, you're showing care for them, and concern for them, and you're showing genuine appreciation for them and what they've gone through. Well, they immediately calm down too. The defensiveness comes down, and they actually they're motivated to serve you in that case.
Now, you've lined out the word help. What does this mean in regard to customer service?
This is a little acronym that I created for that really disgruntled, screaming customer. Because we've all dealt with that situation, and it's really tough.
Or have been that screaming customer.
Or been that screaming customer, and that's not fun either. I mean, on either side, it doesn't really work, right? So H stands for hear the customer out. So listen, you know, interrupting the customer, or the worst you can possibly do, which is starting to defend, is like pouring gasoline on the fire. I mean, you cannot do that. You've got to give them the opportunity to vent. They're screaming, by the way, because they want to be heard. So you need to actually let them do that. The second step of help is empathize and then apologize in that order, as we just talked about a moment ago. The apologies will seem insincere if the empathy isn't there first. And the L of help is lead the customer to the resolution. You know, Mr. Smith, what can I do to make this right for you today? Now, that's a little bit of opening up Pandora's box. You're taking a risk that this person's going to say something you can't deliver. But to me, even in that case, you could say, Mr. Smith, I appreciate you would like me to do that. That's not something I can do. Here's what I can do. And most of the time, if you've empathized appropriately, you apologize appropriately, you really listen to them, they're pretty reasonable by that point. They're calmed down enough by that point if you've done those things well. And then the P of help is just provide that responsible course of action now. And so you have the conversation with Mr. Smith. He said what he wants you to do. Go ahead and start enacting that now. So that's the health steps.
Good tips.
Those are very good tips, I think, from both sides of it, right? If you would like more details on this subject, you can reach Susan on her website at steinbrecher.com, and we will have that address on our website, too. We're back with more broadcast right after this.